Thank you for joining us. We've got 29 countries here today, so it's a truly global start for Phoenix Rising. We've also got my superb colleague, Marianne Sieghart, to talk later, and she'll be talking partly on the theme of her recent, very relevant book. Before I get going, I just want to thank Signalwire, who are our partners in the creation of AIRI, for sponsoring our launch today. Signalwire create engaging virtual events and complete virtual office solutions, as well as developer APIs for integrating seamless video experiences into any product, application, or website. So Signalwire technology is powering the future of real-time business comms. I don't know about the rest of you, but I was remarking to the panelists how extraordinary I thought the website was, because it's really a welcoming home. And so many people tell me that's what I'm going to experience when I go in, and I don't. But this time I really did. So I thought it was really good to see. I was asked just to give a few words about why I'm here today. You know, one of the reasons, and everyone here will recognize it, I was here because I was asked by somebody whom I have a tremendous amount of respect and affection for, which is Laura Westcott. And I try to not to say no to anything that Laura asked me to do. But I was especially keen to join into this project because I think Phoenix Rising is really on to something. First of all, they're onto the fact that we have to change society by ourselves. That although governments can do big things, it's very important that governments act. Really, it's about the entrepreneurs and the leaders and the influencers that really make our society better at a grassroots level for everyone. And trying to build a network of those people, connecting those people up, particularly across the world, and we were just discussing that, particularly across national boundaries, is just so important. And we can all gain ideas and comfort and inspiration and support from each other, and I think this project will do that. And at the same time, Phoenix Rising is also doing something else that is obviously critical, and that's why I'm so happy to see Marianne talk later, because she's done a lot of research in this area, and that is about the balance of male and female sensibilities and attitudes. Now, one of the things I'd said when I was invited to do this was, are you sure you want a male moderator? And Tiffany was quick to say yes, that's very important, because this is about sensibilities. It isn't just about the sex or gender of the people doing the presenting, and so therefore she thought it was very particularly important that I would agree to do it, and I was happy to say yes to this. So that's why I'm supporting it. I'm going to hear a lot more from our panelists and from you all about why you're here and why you're supporting it. If you've got any questions or comments, please use the chat box. But why don't we get going? I'd like to invite founders Tiffany, Laura, Marita, and Sandra to join me to tell you what Phoenix Rising is, why they started it, and what they hope to achieve. Tiffany, hello.
Hello.
I think the best thing to do to start with is for you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Basically, I'm really passionate about people. I'm really passionate about making change happen. I've spent 20 years working all over the world, delivering and designing programs for personal empowerment. I'm really, really passionate about creating masculine and feminine balance. I think that we live in a very masculine and patriarchal society, and I think it's really important that, especially now, that we bring in feminine attributes of nurture and care and kindness and collaboration, and for me, that's what Phoenix Rising is all about. So even though I've spent much of my life working in that specific area, and also helping to design programs for organizations to create culture change, for me, the creation of Phoenix Rising is all about creating a space for people like me to come and connect and to share ideas and to work out how best to change this crazy world that we're in right now, and to do it in a way that's really fun and really exciting and inspiring for all of us. So yeah, so that's a bit about me.
Thank you. So you've got this varied experience. You've been an author, you've been a solution designer, expert facilitator. Are there any other models that have inspired you, influence of which is?
I couldn't hear the end of that, but you said, I think you were saying, is there any models that have inspired me?
Yes, or contributed to the creation
Yeah, so actually it's been so I would flip that on its head. So actually working in the space that I've worked in, which is a lot of female empowerment, a lot of leadership development, I've been inspired to think about things from a very different way, because I think that we need to change the narrative away from just focusing on female empowerment, instead femininity. And so when I was spent time in Asia, for example, there was a lot of work about getting women up into leadership roles in organizations. And actually, I don't think those organizations are ready for that kind of leadership to come into. So for me, it's about creating culture change globally so that all of us can find our balance within ourselves. So I would say that actually some of the things that I've experienced and some of the models and things that are out there have made me want to look at things in a different way. Because if you look back, even though things are gradually changing, they're not changing fast enough. And I think that right now we really need to make things happen quickly. And that's why Phoenix Rising has been created, so that we've got a space for people to come together, start to challenge and ask questions and be curious about what we've been told, and actually come up with collaborations and creativity and innovations together to make change happen.
You've had that experience yourself, have you? Where you've been inspired to do something because you've collaborated or met somebody else in a space such as this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I suppose that's one of the stories behind why Phoenix Rising started, but I'll leave that to Laura because that's her story. But I've been incredibly lucky that I've attracted into my ecosystem through my career an amazing abundance of people who are unconditionally giving. They're very collaborative. They're very much in their feminine, in terms of there hasn't been any competition. There's been supportive competition, which means I win so you win, not I win so you lose. And that's been really inspiring for me. And I actually thought that was normal. And that's one of the stories behind how Phoenix Rising was created, because it was when I saw Laura reacting to that amazing unconditional giving and support and how it impacted her that I thought, wow, that isn't normal. I've been lucky to have it so normal in my life. And so I wanted to create something that gave other people the opportunity to tap into those people that really want to help and support with nothing back apart from what they're going to gain in terms of their own personal empowerment, involvement, and contribution.
I was so interested when we talked me doing this event, and appropriate to have a male uh, chairman. Why don't you share the conversation? Well, it was change, but share, and we talked about a little bit as well. But why don't you share some of that, because I thought it was really interesting in terms of understanding your vision and what you mean by the male feminine balance.
Okay, so for me, it's about masculine and feminine, which is not gender at all. And I think a lot of the conversations and a lot of the focus is on male and female. And I think for us to become unified as human beings, we need to talk about our balance from masculine and feminine perspective. And masculine for me is the yang, and it's about self. And we all need that. We need to make sure that we're okay and we've got what we need and that we're progressing and we're contributing and so on. And the feminine is about other. And it's about collaboration, communication with each other, and it's about sharing ideas and knowing that together we can be more powerful than we are on our own at times. And so for me, it's about bringing that feminine into balance so that we're more inclusive, and so also that we feel like we're not competing against each other and we're not alone on this journey, and instead that we can come together and come up with amazing solutions to some of the massive problems that we're facing in the world right now.
Um, Tiffany, let me bring in your co-founder, co-creator, and Laura, who was the inspiration for creation of Phoenix Rising. And Laura, as I think I said earlier, it was a colleague of mine on the time. Valued one at that. And she's the co-founder. She's a creative guru, is the term being used, and I can kind of understand that. And so she's been a social entrepreneur, campaigner for mental health and equality in business. She's got a lot of experience in PR and media, and I owe a lot of media appearances to her. And she's obviously displayed high creativity. You can hear that in the song that we've had. She's a trained opera singer, apart from anything else. So, Laura, hi, nice to see you. Tell me about sort of story behind working with Tiffany on this project.
Thanks, Danny. It's really great to see you again. I'm very grateful to be on this journey with Tiffany. When Tiffany and I met about 4 or 5 years ago, I was in awe of Tiffany and how she leads her life with effortless abundance and unconditional love. And I have so much respect for Tiffany. And when I started out as a young woman, I realised I was a very good singer. But I didn't really have the courage to pursue a career as a singer because I had anxiety and panic attacks. So after my degree in music, I retrained to journalist. And that's when I met you, Danny. It's when I started my career at the Times. And I was very, very fortunate to have a brilliant mentor, Anushka Healy, who took my career from a PA. I was her PA. And she held my hand up to her PR manager. And then I was lucky enough to go to New York and start a career as an entrepreneur. And I owe a lot to Anushka. But when I left my journey at the Times, I felt like I didn't have the relationship with her because I felt like because she was my boss at the Times, to ask her to be my mentor afterwards, I just felt like it was taking the mickey a little bit. It just didn't seem right. So I bumbled along as an entrepreneur with my first business. And I understood very quickly that I needed business advisors and mentors and like a support network around me, because I am a creative and my first business was still not me and my talent. It was about nurturing other people's talents. And that's just my natural being, is I want to help people achieve their higher self. And so I made very obvious mistakes. I overhired too many people because I thought that other people were better than me. All this very, very common mistakes. And I went to one of Tiffany's events a couple of years ago, and I saw her with her team. Afterwards, we went and met for a drink, and then they asked me how my company was going, and that's when I was upset. And I said, it's not going very well. And they all flocked around me. And that was when we saw the story unfold that Tiffany mentioned earlier. And what was beautiful is that there's this massive oil painting of Phoenix rising out of the flames behind me, because we were at Alexandra Palace in London and the place was called the Phoenix, which is right next door. So that was the moment it was created, when I was overwhelmed by all these people wanting to help me. I mean, I've been very blessed with parents that want to help me, but when it comes to business and things like that, and I need other type of help. So that's where the concept originated. And through the course of the last couple of years, they have supported me to now become a singer again and to be a voice of an app for well-being and to help people with their mental health, so that I prevent them going through what I went through as a young woman. So it's more, I'm very, very grateful for this community for helping me find my life purpose, but also creating this community with Tiffany at the helm, who's got 20 odd years leading feminine masculine leadership programs with world leaders to know how to deliver this. And of course, recently we've had Marita and Sandra, her daughter, join, and it feels like a family. And that's what I have to say about it.
Well, thank you. That's tell me what you think you're now hoping you'll get out of it as the organization develops, and as we get we reach this exciting stage today and go beyond it.
Yeah, I mean, this virtual launch is really exciting because this is all new for us, and I think connecting people. I'm a campaigner for various disabilities, and I feel that connecting people through virtual platforms, which is much more, it's just so much easier now since the pandemic, that we're all used to it. So it makes sense to have this platform. I want to inspire people to find their life purpose like I did, and to be nurtured and supported throughout their journey.
Okay, look, in a second, I'm going to ask Marita and Sandra to share their experiences and their thoughts. But just before I do that, Tiffany, I think might be quite useful if you just took us all a little bit through how the organisation and is going to work and how it's structured, so that people get a feeling of what they can expect in their relationship with Phoenix Rising.
Yeah, okay, so trying to be brief, because obviously there's a huge amount there. So it's a virtual community. Our intention is also to have face-to-face gatherings and events and programs when we can. But in the meantime, we've created this clubhouse for people to come and use and run events and meet each other. There's a bar where we can run karaoke events. So we want to make it as sociable as possible, because with our amazing, inspiring network around the world, I know so many different people that are doing the same things, and trying to connect them is can be quite tricky. So bringing them into this space is going to be wonderful. We've got an absolutely fabulous platform, which is like a next generation LinkedIn, if you like, but it's like a LinkedIn with purpose, and that's where you can share knowledge, where our events are being hosted, where you can connect with each other, a bit similar to LinkedIn. So for us, it's about facilitating change makers and influencers to come together in a way that's really meaningful. And that space also gives opportunities to showcase projects, ask for help. We've got a time bank where people can exchange energy, and they can exchange things that their knowledge and skills and talents and so on. We've got inspiring news and events and things coming into there, and then also partnering with third-party suppliers that are offering things that we think are relevant and bringing them into that space. So making it really easy for anybody who's like Laura, or owns a company, or is a head in a government that wants to create culture change but doesn't know where to start. This is the place where you come to, where you can meet your peers and you can have conversations about how to make that really easy. And then in terms of what we're offering outside of that community, we've also designed a number of programs that we're offering out to corporates, governments and members. We're looking at also, as I said, running events, bringing people together for very specific training and learning and podcasts and well-being. And the sky's the limit really in terms of what we're going to do, but we're going to be very much led by our members and what they want. And at the moment we've got a number of flagship programs that we've designed that focus on entrepreneur acceleration, and then also looking at young professionals, and then consulting with organizations around culture change to become more balanced in their leadership.
Thank you. Let me do what I promised to do, which is to introduce Marita and Sandra. Marita joins Tiffany as co-CEO. She's been described to me, and this is such a great title, Visionary Matriarch, Phoenix Rising. I'd love that title. She's also an award-winning business leader, and she's got significant experience in digital skill building. She's held key CEO roles in different industries across the globe, and as at the moment, discussing this before, speaking to us from the Middle East, that just underlines what I think are one of the most important features of this project, which is its multinational nature and linking people all over the world, which obviously doing it in this kind of clubhouse, virtual clubhouse, helps with it. As we're about to see, she's an inspirational speaker. She's a motivational coach as well as a successful entrepreneur. And in 2013, she received Women in Leadership Award. So, Marita, that is an amazing list of achievements. But I can't really do justice to them, reading them. So I'm glad that you can talk about them. You just recently left a major position in a global software giant. So tell us a little bit maybe about that, about your decision to move on and how it relates to this project.
Yes, very happy to do so. Thanks for having me here, everybody. Having a nice hello. That's the universal thing, I think. Otherwise, I have to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Yes, to be very precise, I worked for 46 years in primarily male-dominated environments. And let it be from construction companies to telco companies to manufacturing companies to airline companies to software companies. So there's quite a big bandwidth. And what I stayed true to is really to nurture everybody who works with me and for me. And I have countless former employees who are now leaders in big organizations or who even have their own big companies. So it was always close to my heart to make sure that whoever joins my team, so to say, is successful in their own way without stretching themselves. I have a cute story. I was one of the only woman in the top 200 managers of a German telco company. And we had this huge event. And I came in a flowering pink dress with a pink shayla, sitting in all gray and dark blue suits. And to my right sits a gentleman. He goes, "Oh, are you the quota woman?" This was in the 80s, early 90s, when the first quota women came up. And I looked at him because I never paid attention to this, and I said, "We can talk after my speech about this." He apologized afterwards, and it was just one of these moments where I said, I'm happy to give back. I'm happy to teach, and I'm happy to take it on. And I have to say, if you balance all these things, it's wonderful. Have my teams be less successful than other teams? I would say no way. Still, my last job, we ran a global program where we found employment for over 4,000 unemployed people in the Middle East and Africa with a handful of employees. So it's just a matter on how you can convince people to work with you, what's your vision, where you want to go. The sky is the limit. And this is where lots of the creation comes from. And I'm super happy I can bring this next generation professional program into Phoenix Rising to scale it even more, to scale it beyond, and maybe help the next generation with an easier start, with not having to fight so much, with not being afraid that there is somebody trying to cut off the how do you call it, the under your share cut off. I have seen it all. I have seen fights in boardroom, and so it's really deep in my heart to make this future a better future, and to help companies to prosper and employees to come home and be really home and feel satisfied with their work. Another thing that really made me starting at the big giant, it's the most valued company in Germany. Whoever wants to Google this can do this. And I joined there from having run a successful consulting company. And the reason for this was, if I can help with the cultural change in this company that had 80,000 employees, I have a bigger impact than when I keep continuing my consulting company. And so this was pretty much the motivation back then for me to leave my consulting company behind, go to this giant, help change this, help change the ecosystem pretty much. And so I think with Phoenix Rising, we can even scale beyond. 4,000 is not the limit. Let it be 40,000, 400,000, 4 million. And this is maybe why I have the title I have.
Excellent. Sandra, welcome. Sandra Losa-Ward is the COO and Operational Mastermind. That's another title I'd really love. I think I'm going to, I don't know, what do you think? Matriarch, visionary matriarch? No, I think Operational Mastermind, yeah, for Phoenix Rising. And you hold a PhD, it says here, in science, but that sounds frighteningly imprecise. I'm sure that you can tell us more about that, but as well as an MBA. Obviously, if we're going to reach the sort of figures that Marita talked about, that's going to have to engage a younger generation. I would think it would be particularly relevant to that generation. Is that why you're involved?
Yes. So thank you so much for welcoming us here and for agreeing to host this. So we, being my mother's daughter, I have always grown up with an extremely strong feminine leader in my life. And she wasn't only a mom, she was also a very, very successful businesswoman. And I've always looked up to her my entire life. So when she asked me to join this movement and then introduced me to Tiffany as well as Laura, this is how we met, actually. And I fell in love with the organization and with the energy of them. I come from a science background, so I have a PhD in neurobehavioral zoology. I did study the effects of exposure to chemicals on the timing of female puberty, just to see why the world is changing and girls are maturing faster. So that's the background I came from. I then went back and got an MBA. Coming from this kind of scientific background, I don't have the creativity that Laura has or that loving, embracing background that Tiffany has, but I saw more of what my mom saw, which is the very male-dominated field, and not just the males, but the masculine energy. Even the women that were in positions similar to me and my former boss at the university, she was a more masculine woman. She had to be tough. She had to be not nurturing and not as loving in order to make it in that space. So when I learned more about Phoenix Rising, I really saw that the only way that we would be able to improve the world that I am growing up, that I grew up in, that I'm still growing up in, that I'm now raising children in, that they will be raising children. If we really want to change the future, we have to start with ourselves. We can't keep looking at others to make changes. We have to be the ones that take that first step. and really just try to make that change. And the best way to make that change is to start embracing each other more, having less of looking at, oh, we need more women in these roles. No, we don't. We need more caring people in more leadership positions. And through this network, I really, really hope that we can drive that change, not for more females in power, but for more caring and nurturing individuals in power, for people who will not go out and start wars, for people who will not, make it worse for our future generations, for people who respect Mother Earth and who will make those changes that we also desperately need.
Well said.
I very much concur with that. Marita, you talked about the number of people that might be involved, but as everyone's listening, what are you hoping for from the individuals who are on this call or who are going to be associating themselves with Phoenix Rising? Give us some ideas about how they can make a positive contribution to this project.
Yes, so one of my favorite sayings is pay it forward. So I think whoever joined the call today learned a lot about what we are up for. So first, happy for you to support us, really hoping for you to support us more. And secondly, paying forward, meaning informing your network. So it's a snowball effect. So if everybody of those who is there invites 10 more people to join, just 10, it's 2 hands full, then it grows already. And the other thing is to be an active contributor. So everybody had a little backpack in life that they are carrying around. Everybody had solutions or has found solutions or gotten help. And sharing stories, sharing experiences, sharing knowledge, offering help, receiving help. I think that's a wonderful thing to do. And this is why today's call for me is the launch, where a little thing can grow. And the other topic is really become partners to Phoenix Rising. We are still out there for partners, and this is how we believe we grow, embracing each other. And out of design thinking, there is a wonderful topic, and this is yes and instead of no but. Quite often when we talk about things, you will hear but, and this is not working. Just change this little mindset and say yes and you will find different heights of collaboration and different heights of solutions. So this is a call to action from my end. Pay forward. I'm definitely now, you heard, I have a daughter and I have grandkids. So for me, it's the time of paying forward. And this is one of the reasons. And I think everybody is possible, has the opportunity to talk about this. If you like it, if not, then don't talk about it.
So, Sandra, my impression is that the generation, of which you're part and which is coming up behind you as well, is more seized of some of these themes and the and a caring individual than possibly generation 20 or 30 years older than that. Is that your impression as well? Do you think, in that sense, Phoenix Rising is going with the grain of your generation and coming up behind you?
Yes, absolutely. So we have definitely seen a change throughout my generation. It's been easier, of course, than it has been for our predecessors. We're always standing on the shoulders of giants, one of my favorite quotes. So we always had those people that paved the way for everything that we are able to do today. However, we still have a lot of people in my generation who were unfortunately raised and ingrained strongly by their parents who may have come from a different background. So we still see even a lot of members of my generation and the younger generation who unfortunately hold the more outdated mindset and don't have such a globally acknowledging energy like what we are trying to share. They are not as inclusive, they are not as caring, and not as much looking out for the future generations. We still have a lot of selfishness, even in the generation that I'm a part of, and people saying, hey, whatever comes next is not really my problem because I'll be dead.
Well, I want to thank the panel. We're going to move on now to my old and good friend, Mary Ann Sieghart, who's very kindly agreed to join. I'm sure that one of the reasons that she's agreed to join us is the reason lots of people do things, which is that she has a book that has come out. But it's also one of the reasons we wanted her to be here, because the book is fantastically relevant to this audience. And actually, if I may say, I think it's also fantastic. She knows I think that. What it's called The Authority Gap. It deals with some of these issues of balance between male and female, and I'm sure, Ma, that Marita's story about being asked in a meeting whether she was the quota woman really resonates. But what's fantastic about your book is you demonstrate that isn't anecdotal, that it's comprehensively statistical. You told me about what you were going to do in advance, but I was blown away when I read it, just the sheer quantity and quality of the data that you managed to assemble. And I knew you could write anyway, so I wasn't ever worried about that, but I also thought the information was just really extraordinary. So you've had a chance, you've joined us, which is really nice, for the rest of the session, so that you could hear what everyone else had to say. You've had a chance to understand what Phoenix Rising is, and I hope you'll address some remarks to what you've heard, and obviously to what you've learned researching the Authority Gap.
Oh, Danny, thank you so much for your kind words. And actually, having worked beside you for such a long time, I can vouch for the fact that you are one of those delightful men who are in touch with your feminine side. And that is a real compliment. And so it's great to have you moderating today, and fantastic to hear about what Phoenix Rising is planning to do. So I want to talk a little bit about leadership, and about women's leadership, men's leadership, and what happens when we try to get in touch with men with their feminine side and women with their masculine side. And I want to start with talking about Jack Zanger and Joseph Falkman. Now, they run a leadership consultancy, and they study the effectiveness of leaders. And just a couple of years ago, they analysed the data from, those 360-degree evaluations that people have done for 60,000 leaders. And they found that, on average, women were rated better leaders by those who worked for them than men were. And in 17 out of the 19 categories that they looked at, women outperformed men. Though interestingly, men rated themselves more highly than women did. I don't suppose that's all that surprising. But more recently, Zanger and Falkman wanted to see whether during this pandemic, these ratings had changed. So in other words, are women still better leaders than men, even when it comes to leading through a crisis? And what they found was that the gap is even larger now, that women are significantly outperforming men. And of course, we've seen this at the very top during the pandemic. So countries with female leaders have on average suffered many fewer COVID cases and hugely fewer COVID deaths. And this is even true when you match up countries with very similar demographics and geography, like, say, New Zealand with Ireland, or Germany with the UK. And even American states with female governors have had lower death rates than those with male ones. Now, it's not that all the male leaders have been terrible, but there is a particular type of blustering, overconfident, vainglorious, risk-taking man, who revels in not wearing a mask, or in shaking the hands of COVID patients and boasting about it and expecting not to catch the virus. Don't have to name him, but I think one day soon we're going to judge that these men actually have blood on their hands, because they could have saved tens of thousands of human lives if they'd led differently, and actually if they had led in a more feminine way. So why have female leaders performed better in this crisis? Well, at the national level, female prime ministers have tended to be more cautious, more willing to take advice from experts, less egocentric, more empathetic, less likely to believe that they or their country was somehow exceptional. And while they were prepared to take risks for economies, they weren't prepared to take risks with people's lives. And that has made them much more successful leaders. And what about the female leaders in the first study that I talked about? What were they doing differently? Well, Zanger and Falkman asked the senior employees who worked directly for the leaders, so the direct reports for all these leaders, what they most valued in their leaders in a crisis. And these people said they put most importance on interpersonal skills, such as inspires and motivates, communicates powerfully, collaboration/teamwork, and relationship building, all of which women leaders were rated more highly on than men. And these are exactly the skills that Phoenix Rising is trying to encourage. And they can be found in men as well as women. In fact, I think the best leaders tend to be the most androgynous ones. So the ones who can draw on both traditionally male and traditionally female stereotypes. So they tend to be the men with high emotional intelligence and the women with drive and charisma who tend to perform best. But the trouble is that while we praise men who show these traditionally feminine characteristics, who show emotional intelligence and empathy, who work on engaging and inspiring their employees, who are collaborative and democratic, we punish women who show the traditionally male characteristics. So it's actually very unfair. And that's because we're still more reluctant to accord authority to women than to men. So there's what I call an authority gap between the sexes. That's what my book's all about. So where does this reluctance come from? Well, all of us, however liberal or intelligent or even female we are, still have these sneaky little nasty stereotypes that lurk somewhere in the base of our brain that tell us that men need to be confident and assertive and show leadership. That's what social psychologists call showing agency, having agentic characteristics, whereas women have to be gentle and kind and unassuming and unthreatening and unself-promoting and uncompetitive and unambitious. And the trouble is that for women to become leaders in the first place, they have to have those male characteristics as well as the great female ones. So they have to be confident and assertive and have leadership skills, because those are absolutely necessary conditions for them to be promoted in the first place. And the more feminine characteristics are the sort of icing on the cake, I think, still, though of course they shouldn't be. And the trouble is that when women show these characteristics, we quite often recoil from them. We feel uncomfortable. We don't like it because they're going against stereotype. We start to use adjectives about them such as, oh, she's a bit abrasive or strident or aggressive. I bet you recognize some of these: bossy, overbearing, even bitchy or ball-breaking. And these are adjectives that we never use of men who come across as confident or assertive. And so it's really difficult for women. This is a very fine line that they have to navigate between being confident and assertive enough to be taken seriously in the first place, but not so confident and assertive that they put people off and they just seem too masculine. So this is a problem when it comes to confidence. It's also a problem when it comes to talking time in public settings. Now, men talk much more than women do in public. So that's in educational settings, at school, in university, in work settings, in outside settings such as town hall meetings or parliaments or whatever. And you might say, well, maybe we take men more seriously than women simply because they come across more confidently and they talk more. And there may be a point in that. But the trouble is that we also punish women for talking as much as men. And we perceive them to have talked more than men, even when they've only talked for exactly the same amount of time. So our perceptions are all wrong. And there was a very interesting study done by social psychologists of a fictional CEO. And people were told that this CEO talked more than other people, which CEOs often do, right? It's the sort of thing that leaders do. When the CEO was given the name Jennifer, people marked her down. They said she was less competent and showed less leadership potential if she talked more than other people. Whereas when the CEO was called John, they actually said he was more competent and showed more leadership potential when he talked more than other people. When they were told that the CEO taught less than other people, Jennifer's skills, her competence and her leadership skills shot up. So I think women are rather aware of this. In fact, you often hear women saying, oh God, did I talk too much? Which I don't think is something you very often hear men here saying. And that's because we feel it, even maybe just subconsciously, but we can tell that people are disapproving of us if we're talking too much. And therefore we have to sort of tone ourselves down the whole time, not take up too much time in meetings. But as a result, we're then often marked down for promotion because people say, oh, well, she just doesn't contribute enough. And there's the same problem when it comes to self-promotion. So women quite often think, well, as long as I do my job well, I'm going to be promoted. That's all I have to do. I will be promoted on merit. Tragically, this isn't the case. It's not just what you do, it's how you sell yourself. But the trouble is, again, men are allowed to self-promote, and people think, yeah, that's absolutely fine. It's, of course, quite understandable. He schmoozes to his manager and tells him how good he is. People don't like women doing that at all. Women are really not allowed to be boastful. And girls are socialized from a very early age to be self-deprecating, to do themselves down. They have to say to their girlfriends, oh, I'm useless at maths. Oh, I hate my hair. Oh, my bum's too big. And that's the way in which they bond with other girls, and then later as they grow up with other women. Whereas if you look at little boys playing with each other, a lot of it is sort of boastful competitiveness. It's, oh, my dad's got a bigger car than yours, or I can kick the ball faster than you, or further than you. And they get trained to promote themselves and to compete, whereas girls and women are held down. And so I think we just have to think in a more nuanced way about this sort of thing. I mean, yes, of course, we have to encourage men to learn these interpersonal skills that women on average are much better at. But we've also got to stop punishing women for showing the agentic skills that are absolutely necessary for leadership. You have to be decisive. You have to be confident in yourself. You have to bring other people along. And so next time you find yourself using adjectives like abrasive or strident or aggressive or unlikable about a woman, particularly a woman in authority, ask yourself whether that's not telling you more about yourself than about her. Personally, I find confident, sassy, ambitious women completely fabulous, but I fear that I'm still in a minority, given that most men and some women disagree. And so in an ideal world, we'd all see them that way. But until then, if we want to narrow the authority gap and improve the quality of our leadership, we need to look very carefully at our instinctive reactions to women in authority and try to recognize them for what they really are, which is an irrational and outdated product of our social conditioning. That will allow more women into leadership roles, and the phoenix will rise. Thank you.
Well, people are muted. You can't necessarily see or hear everyone applauding, but you can probably just about see it. Certainly, I thought that was just absolutely so happy that we had you come and do that, MA, and it was terrific. But do buy the book. There's lots more like that in it, and it's all done with the same amount of verve. I really recommend it. It's terrific read and really important stuff. Definitely on the money, I think. Okay, well, look, we've reached the end of our time. I want to thank the panel. I'm really excited about Phoenix Rising. I think it's going to be a great success. You can see the amount of passion and thought that's gone into it, and the quality of leadership it offers. I think it's a great network around the world. So I'm really happy to have the associated with the opening of it. I'm sure it won't be the last time I'm associated with it, because it's going to go from strength to strength. Well, Marita said 4 million. Why not? Let's get going. And thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Marita and Sandra. Thank you, MA. All of you were absolutely terrific. I really enjoyed the chance to moderate and listen to. Thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Under skies older than the sands of time, I wonder, can you hear my cry for over time? There has been a misaligned symmetry of pure design. Oh, balance. We will rise, we will rise, we will rise, oh, we will rise, we will rise, we will rise, oh, we'll rise, we will rise, we will rise, we will rise, oh, we'll rise, we will rise, we will rise, we will rise, oh, we'll rise. Feel it changing energy as we rise from the see the people harmonize, 1,000-generation choir, all singing. Time to rise. Can you see the phoenix fly, transcending our divergent ties? Oh, winning.